Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Will of the People, The Revolutionary Birth of America by T.H. Breen. Narrated by Timothy Andrés Pabon. Introduction. Revolutionary Voices. We encounter them daily, if we care to look. We identify them not by their clothes, which range from battle fatigues to jacket and tie, or by their settings, which vary from urban streets to rural mountain hideouts and everything in between. Instead, we know them by their faces. On television or in magazines, they demand attention, their countenances etched with vivid emotions, often little more than wordless expressions of fear, anger, determination, sacrifice, and hope. These are the revolutionaries of our own times, mostly nameless individuals, brought to our attention because they appealed for personal security and social justice and have become caught up in political whirlwinds that now transform their lives. Revolutionary movements of this sort always give us leaders, some famous, others less so. The names come and go. But the enduring face of resistance is a revolutionary people. When we bother to think about it, we sense that over 2 centuries ago, revolutionary Americans must have looked like these ordinary men and women. But curiously, they have largely gone missing from the stories we tell ourselves about our nation's origins. Like their contemporary counterparts, we do not know their names, or indeed very much about them. The fault is ours, the consequences significant. Their absence from our shared historical memory impoverishes our understanding of how they turned a colonial rebellion into a genuine revolution, and in the process constructed a new political culture. Without their participation in organizing effective resistance to Great Britain on the ground, and then sustaining the cause over 8 difficult years of war, the revolution would surely have failed. If we listen carefully, we can still recover these revolutionary voices. It is essential that we do so. They speak of original meanings, of our nation's founding values that now more than ever must be reclaimed. As we shall discover, the passage of time has not silenced Americans who made the revolution work, and who during moments of great personal peril insisted that the best government was a government based on the will of the ordinary people. Surviving records from the period recapture their ideas and experiences. A Maryland farmer in a fit of rage tells a local committee of revolutionaries they might kiss his ass. A minister witnessing the outbreak of internecine violence in his community writes that parents and children, brothers and sisters, wife and husband were enemies to one another. A contributor to a Pennsylvania newspaper condemns war profiteers on the ground that every right or power claimed by any man or set of men should be in subordination to the common good. Wives in New York State publicly protest that since they do not share the political beliefs of their Tory husbands, they should be allowed to keep their farms. A Connecticut minister to a tiny congregation strives to inculcate in the minds of the people a just sense of their rights. Thousands of ordinary Americans from Georgia to New Hampshire spontaneously create a huge, unprecedented charity to relieve the people of Boston, perfect strangers, during the British occupation. This is the human face of our revolution. Such people are not familiar figures in the revolution that Americans celebrate. They should be. They hold the key to explaining why our revolution ended differently from most other revolutions that have shaped the modern world. Facing revolution's anger, fear, and passion, crucial elements in mounting effective political resistance, ordinary Americans repeatedly preserved a rule of law. They avoided violent and destructive excesses. Political liberation went hand in hand with restraint. Throughout the war, this commitment sustained a powerful sense of shared purpose, which in fact energized a new spirit of nationalism that brought forth the kind of political stability that had eluded so many other revolutionary nations. It was an impressive accomplishment, one that we should not take for granted. They promoted and secured a political culture that endures even as waves of partisan anger threaten to negate their achievement. 1. The American Revolution still speaks to us, although not so clearly as it once did. Over the years, the message has become so estranged from us that we no longer quite comprehend what insights into a shared political culture we should now be trying to recover. This is especially challenging at a moment in our country's history when there is so little agreement about how the past might speak to an uncertain future. The solution may require an entirely new perspective on the country's political origins. To restart the conversation, we might ask, where exactly did the American Revolution take place? The question may seem strange, largely because we usually recount the history of national independence in terms of heroic personalities and major military events. A different story of the Revolution, one that addresses more persuasively many concerns of our own generation, offers immediate and striking rewards. Indeed, merely posing a question about the where of revolution invites a telling of the revolution that shifts attention away from a familiar narrative of the nation's political origins. That approach builds upon a well-established, largely intellectual interpretation of the founding, about the importance of ideas about rights and liberty in securing independence. There is no doubt. The more pressing interpretive issue, one addressed here, is how those fundamental rights and liberty were actually achieved, and who did what in achieving them. As we shall discover, a recounting of abstract constitutional principles is not sufficient. A revised perspective must weave these political assumptions with the day-to-day experience of resistance on the ground. This is a crucial element in explaining how revolutions work. Demonstrating the complex ways that ideas and experience interacted alerts us to something generally ignored in the American story of revolution: human passion. Unless we acknowledge how such basic emotions, chronic fear, desire for revenge, or suspicion of betrayal, for example, profoundly affected how people adjusted to the shifting demands of revolution, we cannot fully understand what the revolutionaries were trying to tell us, not only about their rejection of monarchy and aristocracy, but also about the creation of a new political order. The initial question about the where of the revolution, of course, sparks obvious responses. We could direct our attention, as many historians have done, to the battlefields where George Washington and the Continental Army defied all odds and emerged victorious after a long struggle, or we could center our revolutionary narrative on the Continental Congress, where the key debates about nationhood occurred, and in the process come to a fuller appreciation of the extraordinary achievements of the country's political leaders. The founders not only managed to finance the war and preserve a sense of union, but also drafted documents such as the Declaration of Independence that to this day affirm our shared commitment to rights, liberty, and freedom. No one would fault either strategy. Americans certainly could not have succeeded in their struggle with Great Britain without the perseverance of the Army or the contributions of the founders. As I shall argue, however, we could just as persuasively locate the revolution in the thousands of small communities and port towns, where men and women from Georgia to New Hampshire sustained the war effort and established a political regime that remains central to our own beliefs about power and its abuses. Although many communities contributing to the success of the revolution took no direct part in the major military campaigns, we should not allow their distance from organized combat to conceal their fundamental importance in mobilizing resistance to Great Britain and continuing the war effort when battlefield reverses and internal disputes eroded public morale. It was in these settlements, in towns, county seats, or crossroads marked only by a courthouse, church, or tavern, where people swept up by political passion made choices that changed their lives. Decisions about political allegiance, about policing domestic enemies, about supplying scarce funds and resources to advance what became known as the country's common cause, about maintaining solidarity during a period of hyperinflation, and about other Americans who had aided the British during the war and, after the peace, wanted to return. The challenge of sustaining a revolution within these intimate personal networks over 8 years was more difficult than most of us fully comprehend. The history.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?